Wardrobe for the Bass Tour Anglers podcast provided by Koppel Outfitters. Go have an adventure. Visit them online at www.koppeloutfitters.com and on social media at Koppel Outfitters.
Chasing man, it shows how to perform.
Well, get those live bass zipped and clipped, strap down those rods, and stash away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bass Tour Anglers podcast. Thanks for being with us. Tacticam fisheye cameras make this podcast possible. Tacticam. This is the company that offers high-resolution action cameras for about half the cost of what the other guys charge. Are you in the market for an action camera? Be sure to check out the Tacticam fisheye camera. You'll be glad you did. We are honored to say that we are the Western representatives for ducket fishing. You know these guys, the strongest pro staff in all professional fishing. If you have any questions about the ducket fishing lineup of pro-driven products, send us a DM on Instagram or go to our website, basstouranglers.com, and send us an email. If you are new to the show, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave us a comment if you're so inclined. Got some very cool things for you this episode. We've got Jim Moynagh lined up. He's going to be talking to us about the economics of professional bass fishing. You won't want to miss that. We've also got some local fishing reports. We'll be checking in with Ghost Tackle up on the Delta. We'll be checking in with Last Chance Bait and Tackle down in the Inland Empire part of Southern California. And we will get you the inside information on what's making those fish bite right now. But right now, let's get started with our interview. Our guest has been a regular in Major League Fishing Pro Circuit events since 1995. He's a three-time winner that includes a win at the 1997 Forest Wood Open. He's earned over $1 million fishing in professional events. He also produces content on his YouTube channel, Jim Moynagh Fishing. Jim, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us today.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And all right, well, let's get this thing rocking.
Well, you published something on your YouTube channel last week called the Bass Fishing Economics. And in this video, you detailed the costs and revenues associated with competing at the highest level in tournament fishing. Your results, at least for me, were quite eye-opening. Could you kind of run down what it cost to compete at this level?
Yeah, well, in the video you mentioned, I basically just wanted to go through, what's it cost? Just cost to fish a tournament. Not, there was a lot of secondary costs. I didn't even include in it, but I just wanted to address the entry fees, the lodging, the travel there, and some of the money you might spend there. Just the cost of fishing a tournament. And so it turned out, it's nearly, well, the entry fee itself this is now for the MLF Pro Circuit now. The entry fees for the whole year is $35,000 going into 2022, which is an increase of $5,000 from last year. 2021 was 30,000, which is really high. So they bumped it up to 35,000, which means and there's 6 tournaments. So the 35,000 divided by 6 is 5,833. So that's your entry fee right there. Then, so then you got to drive there. Living in Minnesota, so many of these tournaments are a 2-day drive for me. I'm looking at 1,000 miles plus. I've got a truck that gets 8 miles a gallon when I'm pulling my boat, and I have the pickup camper in the bed of the truck, so I'm getting 8 miles a gallon. So really, I'm spending like anywhere from $1,000 to $1,700, $1,800 round trip in just truck gas. Going down to Lake Okeechobee or the Harris Chain or whatever in Florida, for example. That's I'm sure that's over $1,500. And then of course you got your boat gas, that's a couple $100. I use a camper, so I'm looking at that's kind of averages out to about 300, 250, 300. It depends on the campground and what they charge you. So, but it's typically about a 8 or 9 day stay on average. Because you got usually a lot of times I got promotions the day before practice. So that's so I got to be there the night before that. And then the day of the promotions, that's another night. And then a couple of nights for practice, off limits, a couple of days of the term. So yeah, you're looking at 9 days or so, something like that. So, 9 times, most campgrounds are charging 35 to, 50 almost. So 9 times 40, for example, is what, 360. So you got that. And yeah, so that's just like the raw basic cost of doing the tournament. I'm not including insurance for the truck, insurance for the boat, and of course the cost of the whole cost of the boat. That's there are costs. Every pro is sponsored at different levels. For me, I get, I've got to make money. Just to, I got to make some money. I got to win. I got to cash some checks just to get to break even, and then cash more checks to be ahead. So yeah, so I just wanted to just kind of highlight what's involved, because a lot of people ask me questions about this kind of stuff. And really when I got the notice that there was going to be a $5,000 increase, it just kind of depressed me, because that's going to hit me right in the bottom line. That $5,000 is going to be $5,000 I'm not going to have after the year, because they wanted it. So,
Well,
but I do this exercise just about every year, where I weigh out the risk of what I've got to put up, and compare it to the potential reward, and what is going to be the reward. Guess what? They raised, the entry fee is $5,000 per angler. You're going to have 150 anglers. So you're looking at, I think that was $750,000 more they're going to take in the entry fees. And you think, well, okay, well, at least they're going to put that into the prize pool. Well, no, they didn't put it into the prize pool. They didn't put any of it in the prize pool. That's just went into, I don't know, operational costs is what they can use it for. I don't know, but we're not going to see it. So that's kind of depressing. It's like, dang it, what? The sport's going backwards. We had such a, in that mid 2000s, we were just living, high off the hog with tournament fishing in the FLW tour. I mean, we had 3 tournaments. We're paying $200,000 for first place, just 3 regular season tournaments. We had championship. We had $1 million championship first place prizes, and boy, we've really. I mean, it just continues to slide from there. Our entry fees for this year of 2021, they were slightly less than 2020, so that gave me hope that, hey, these guys, if this is going to be the new trend, well, that'd be cool. But all of a sudden, they hit us with a big increase again. So a little deflating. Fortunately, I do have sponsorships, and I can't cover all my expenses with my sponsorships. I got to cash a few checks. So if I do cash some checks, I hit that break even point, and then, from there I can, I can keep cash. If I have a decent year, I can come out ahead. So, but really, if you look at how I've done the last couple of years, I got like a 27th in the year Angler of the Year points, and then a 25th in Angler of the Year points for the last couple of years. And I'm sure I ain't making much. That's for darn sure.
Well,
Even with that decent finish, that's out of 160 guys that I'm doing better than a good majority of them, and I'm barely making it.
Well, Jim, I remember far enough back. I remember that in 1997 you won a Forest Wood Open, and it paid you $200,000. And then the next year you came back and you finished second in that event, and it paid you $100,000. And when you look at tournament payouts today, nothing's really changed. How do we account for this?
Well, okay, let's put those tournaments into perspective. The entry, okay, let's take that 1997 Forest Wood Open. Now, let's not confuse it with what's called the Forest Wood Cup.
Right,
the Forest Wood Cup, it was always the championship. The Forest Wood Open at that time was the name they put on one tournament where they'd elevate everything. They'd elevate the payout, but they'd also elevate the entry fee. So in that 1997 Forest Wood Open, it was just a regular qualifier tournament. It's just they decided to elevate the payouts and the entry fees. So the entry fee in that 1997 Forest Wood Open was $2,500, and the potential win was $200,000. And second was 100, third was 50, fourth was probably like 35, third was like 30, and even 10th place was still like 20,000. But here's the difference between then and now. See, once you got out of that top 10, back then they, radically started, reducing the payouts per spot. So, for example, 25th place back in that 1997 tournament probably paid just a few thousand, whereas now, they are paying $10,000 down quite a ways. So it's hard to completely compare what they're doing. So in other words, they stack the money towards the top back in that 1997 tournament.
Yeah.
As compared to now, they've kind of pulled it out of that top tier and spread it down farther. So, but still, I'd much rather risk $2,500 than $5,800 per tournament, considering which we're getting back. That's
kind of my point. Yes, I know they're paying down $10,000 to 50th place, but in your video, you outlined without even covering all the costs, and it still costs you like $8,500 to fish one event. You win $10,000 in one event. You made a little bit of money, but
that's right. Yeah, that's what it turned out to be. You got the per tournament, you got the 5,800, and then you got another, I don't know, minimum of 1,000 in truck gas for me, minimum.
Yeah.
Well, now you're up to 6,800, and then throw in a couple hundred for gas, you're up to 7,000. License is maybe $50, but then you got your lodging. So really, you're not making a whole lot after, you get your 10,000, you finish 50th place. That's the last $10,000 check. And, you're clearing, 1,500 to 2,000, and that's not, and again, those numbers were not including depreciation on equipment,
right?
Insurance, and all those hidden, I won't say they're hidden costs, but the costs that aren't directly, right there at the tournament.
Yeah, so. And so now does you finished 27th this year on the tour, and that meant you did get to go fish in the tour championship event. Does fishing in the tour championship event, is that a no cost? It's certainly not there's no entry fee, but is that a no cost event for you?
Yes, that is a no cost event. And that's you pretty much have to qualify for that in order to make it, any kind of a season out of it financially. And they take the top 50 guys. So that means 100 and we started the year with 160. So 100, 110 guys went, they didn't get to fish the championship.
Right.
And not only that, those guys, because they really didn't do as good as they needed to, well, they probably, maybe cashed 3 checks or less through the season.
Right.
Maybe a couple of them might have got 4 checks, but so they're not only did they not get into the free championship where they could, get where you can get a good check without the offsetting it with a big entry fee. But yeah, so they had a rough season, so all those guys lost money.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking into what they take in sponsors. Sure, some of those guys might have sponsors that pay for everything, entry fees, expenses, who knows, but a lot of them don't. So
well, in your opinion, what needs to be done? What needs to happen to payouts at these events? I mean, are we? Is it unrealistic to think that 150 guys can really afford to stay out there on tour like that? Does the organization need to do more than they're doing? What needs to happen?
Well, personally, for me, what needs to happen is I need to get out of this pro circuit by either qualifying for the Bass Pro Tour, which is the next level up,
Right.
or I don't start fishing Bass Opens and try to get into the Bass Elites.
Oh,
At those 2 top tiers, I think you can demand a little more sponsorship dollar and get some more backing behind you,
yeah.
especially. And then with the Bass Pro Tour, I haven't done the numbers, but there's I don't know. The talk is they're going to cut the first year they had no entry fees, which
Right.
is the holy grail of tournament fishing. If you can get in a tournament with no entry fee, it's like, my gosh, let's do it. That's a holy grail. But then they put on some entry fees on them, but I heard that their goal is to get them back down to where they don't have much of an entry fee. And boy, if that's the case, yeah, that's where I got to be.
We will be right back with more of our Jim Moynagh interview, but now Duckett Rods and Reels is going to take you fishing. The California Delta is one of this country's most prolific fisheries. Ghost Bait and Tackle is Sacramento's best source for rods, reels, live bait, and most importantly, information. The independent tackle shops are still our best source for what the fish are really doing. We have Sedrick Ghoston from Ghost Bait and Tackle with us today. Sedrick, how are things going on the California Delta?
The Delta is actually a great source right now with a lot of the water levels down in the lakes and reservoirs. So the Delta is pretty consistent source of fishing. It's awesome.
Talk to us about what I mean. First of all, you got multi-species. You don't just have bass fishing. I know that there's salmon runs and stripers and things like that. What seems to be the hot ticket right now?
Right now, well, we're in the middle of salmon season, so we have bank anglers, boat anglers. They're throwing spinners, they're jigging, they're drifting and trolling for salmon. Striper run, the fall striper run is starting, and we're even catching sturgeon.
Wow. Now, I mean, people come into your shop and they want to know what to do to catch these things. Is there a part of the Delta that is better than others, or can you just literally go outside your store and start fishing from right there?
Well, actually, right now for salmon and striper, you could go right outside the store. But all those species start in the bay. So as they start their run, we stay in touch with the customers that are fishing, and we're able to let you know about where the run is. Hey, you need to go further out, closer to the mouth, and start fishing for stripers. The larger fish are towards the mouth. Oh, now they're all through the system. You can go anywhere. So
Wow.
during the period of the run, depending on the species and when it starts, and those are that's all based on weather. So it's seasonal based on a calendar year, but every year is different based on type of rainfall and when it starts getting cold.
So they're obviously very water temperature oriented.
Absolutely.
Wow. And how far up do they go? Because where you are there in Sacramento, that is, I don't want to say the end of the Delta, but that's way inland from where the Delta begins, right?
Correct. And a lot of people would see that as very far north or very far inland.
Yeah.
But they're catching salmon as far north as Redding and Red Bluff. They run
Wow.
these different rivers and stream systems and spawn there. So there's a lot of miles of river. This is a great system.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I love your point about, for those of you that don't know about California, we're running out of water in a hurry, but there's still one place where the water seems to be abundant, and that is in the Delta. You guys, there's no water problem there, is there?
You could see it in the rivers a little bit based on how much they let out of the reservoirs. But
Yeah.
when you get to the Delta, the only significant change we've had, I mean, there's plenty of water. There's plenty of water to fish in the Delta. The only significant difference this year is the salinity. So actually, there's some customers have been catching sturgeon all year round because not a ton of fresh water to push out the salt. So the sturgeon have kind of habitated all year round further in the Delta system.
Oh wow.
Wow,
Interesting. Interesting. Well, now what about the largemouth? Is there much going on with largemouth this time of year?
Oh, it's about to start fall. Well, we just had a bass tournament here out of Discovery Park, just 5 minutes here from my shop. And it was probably 70 boats. They were catching smallmouth, largemouth, spots, kind of adjusting to the fall change.
My experience on the Delta, I have never fished as far inland as Sacramento. I've always fished kind of down in the the Big Break Marina kind of area. That's where a lot of the tournaments were launched from. But it's kind of startling for me to hear you talk about spotted bass and smallmouth bass in the Delta. I always thought of that as a largemouth fishery.
Absolutely. And we saw yesterday quite a few smallmouth, and I think the largest fish was a spotted bass.
Is that right? Now, where do I know smallmouth fish are river fish, but how are guys catching smallmouth on the Delta?
Smallmouth, well, there's some structure and some shelves offshore a little bit. There's a lot of riprap, and there's some wing dams and things that break up the current from the river. And it's something you have to learn. River fishing is not Delta fishing, and it differs from lakes and reservoirs.
Real quickly for largemouth, smallmouth, and spotted bass, what seem to be the lures that are going out the doors for you?
So what a lot of guys they're definitely still drop shotting. Chatterbaits are awesome right now. They're doing chatterbaits and swim baits. Chatterbaits with swim pattern tails, trailers. Give me 1 second. I have a customer, Keith.
No problem.
All right. So where were we?
Well, I was going to say I just love the fact that small tackle shops. I know that there's all kinds of online stuff and things like that that's out there, but what I wasn't eavesdropping, but the microphone was on, and you cannot get what I just listened to anywhere else but a local tackle shop.
Right.
And
I'll tell you, I was talking to the owner of the tournament yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm a fisherman. I've been fishing all my life. You fish. When
Yeah.
you put in a lot of hours, I guess the way he put it is, he said, some guys only get once a month kitchen pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get once a month to get out and try to have that awesome fishing day. You only have so many hours in that day, and
Right.
you want to maximize that opportunity. And that's what we try to provide here is, I can't guarantee you're going to catch fish based on the information I give you, but I want to give you the best opportunity to make the most of that day you have.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's in your best interest for them to have the best day possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sedrick, how long has your shop been there?
We've been open for 6 months, Steve.
Yeah, I know you guys are new, but what I see on Instagram and what I see when you and I talk, and it's a really good vibe. You just feel like it's a store where it's kind of pulling people in, and like I said, I just overheard your discussion with a customer, and it's like you sounded like you both knew each other for years, and really, we probably know each other because every fisherman is really connected to every other fisherman, you know?
You know, back in college, I took off and we went deep sea fishing, fell in love, and before you know it, I left college and I was working on a fishing boat.
Yeah.
I told you that story.
Yep.
And I talked to my skipper the other day because one of my customers was going to fish on his boat. So funny how full circle.
It's a small community. It is a small community. Hey, you've got a big event coming up today. You're involved with a bass tournament somewhere there on the Delta. What's going on there?
That was yesterday. That was
yesterday.
Yeah, that was the Future Pro Tour.
Okay.
Vince Harris puts on. You know, same thing. Best bang for your buck is the amount of time you have to go do some bass fishing. And it was challenging for some of the guys to fish the river who are used to fishing lakes and reservoirs. No huge limits because they were forced to not go all the way down to the Delta. But again, guys were figuring out how to drop shot out on the river, and they were figuring out how to throw swim baits and jerk baits in the shallows, and figure out how to fish those cliffs with jigs. And you know, they had a good time developing themselves. That's why it's called Future Pro.
And you and Ghost Bait and Tackle donated some things, I guess.
We donated. We helped at the weigh-in station, and gave some prizes away and met some guys, shook some hands. It's a great time.
Outstanding. Well, Sedrick, I've enjoyed talking to you. Thanks for being with us today, and we'll do this again real soon, okay?
All right, Keith. Good to see you.
Sounds good. We are talking to Jim Moynagh. He is a longtime professional tour pro, and we are talking about the economics of bass fishing. Jim, the term sponsors has always been way overused in the sport of bass fishing. What should the role of a sponsor be? Should an angler be an employee of a sponsoring company? Should that be a job for the angler? Should the angler always be on retainer? What do you see the responsibility of a company, and what do you see the responsibility of the angler being?
Okay, yeah, well, there's definitely a relationship between the sponsor and the pro angler, and they're not all the same between a pro and the company. It varies greatly. Even let's say, for example, Mercury Outboards, they got a large pro team. It's not the same for every pro.
Right.
Kevin Van Dam is probably going to be able to demand a little more of a higher sponsorship than myself, for example. So, in fact, a lot of these companies, they have tiers. They'll have, especially the big companies like the Mercury or Lowrance or some of the boat companies. They already have it pre-figured out. We're going to have this tier, this tier, this tier, and this tier. So the lowest tier might be, who knows, for example, 20% discount on product. The next tier might be 40% discount on product, and eventually you're at if you're at high enough level, maybe you're getting the product for free, and then if you're at the top level, you're getting the product plus some cash. So a lot of the bigger companies will structure it out that way. But now smaller companies, or maybe a company that just sponsors one angler, then that's really a customizable type sponsorship. That's, who knows what that could be. But there's going to be, as a pro angler, you got to ask yourself, how can I promote this company to justify them paying me money to do this? So the ways you do it are, first of all, you have the wrap on your boat and truck, and in my case, my pickup camper, and don't undersell that, because a lot of people see that up and down, especially the ones, much as driving as I'm doing up and down these interstates, going here and there to tournaments. That's logo, that company's name is seen by a lot of people. So, but there's other things you can do. I guess with fishing related sponsorships, there's always the input you can give. Let's say I'm sponsored by All Terrain Tackle, for example. So if I got an idea for a new jig or a way I could tweak a jig, you got to be supplying them with ideas of new product and ways to make their stuff better. The other thing you can be doing for them is, they might ask you to take a special client of theirs out guiding, so take advantage of that when you can. Make yourself available. If they call you up and say, hey, we got this sales rep in Iowa, can you get there and take this guy out sometime? It's like, yeah, make some time, put it, do it. Because you're there, you got to do everything you can to give your sponsor the biggest bang for their buck, really. And then if they see that you're doing a good job, well, so be, maybe they'll pay you more next year. So,
well, you hit on something, and you said don't undersell your boat wrap. The boat wrap has been undersold without a doubt. When this became a big thing, I want to say around 2005 with I think it was the BASS Elite started this. These guys were getting their boats wrapped, and that's got to be worth at least the entry fees paid back to the pro. Don't you agree?
Yeah, it's it all depends on it's don't undersell it, that's for sure. I mean,
do you feel like guys are giving that away at this point?
I don't know what other guys are getting. If a guy's got XYZ company on the side of his boat, I don't know what he's getting for it. I don't. We usually have like confidentiality statements in the contracts we sign with people, so you can't really just go having free discussions with other people as far as what you're getting paid. So,
and that's kind of unfortunate. That's kind of unfortunate. What anglers need is they need what other professional athletes have, and those they have agents, and those agents negotiate that stuff, and they put it out there because those confidentiality agreements are what is keeping the value of all this down, don't you think?
I kind of agree. Why does like XYZ company want to have their pro team not talk to one another about what they're getting? Well, that's because they don't, there's going to be a couple of those guys that are probably getting a lot, and then majority aren't getting, are getting way less. So,
oh man, I tell you, Jim, this kind of stuff gets me fired up. And I just those mobile billboards that you guys drive across the country, that's approaching television type exposure. It really is.
Yeah, there's a lot of people are seeing that stuff, and it's all those impressions. It's actually companies that put wraps on boats and trucks, they're actually getting a bargain compared to what it costs to run like a TV ad or
oh my gosh,
radio
yes.
ad. Yeah, for sure they are. And there's let's not forget some other things that pro anglers do. I mean, obviously when you're fishing a tournament and you do well in a tournament, well, you're going to get on their live stream of
Absolutely.
the tournament organization, and you're going to be able, gain your sponsors exposure that way. Gosh, there's other ways that you can do it as well that it's just not coming to mind right now. But
maybe doing a podcast with some guy, huh?
Yeah. Well, right. Well, that's just it. I didn't put this Bridgeford hat on for nothing. If they see it, if Bridgeford sees it, they're like, hey, he's working for us. I got my Ranger sweatshirt on. So, but yeah, well, then that's the other. Social media is huge now. That's if you go back 12, 15 years ago, social media was just starting to ramp up in the fishing industry. But now, I was just starting to hear back then, hey, you got to start doing this, you got to start doing that. So I started a Facebook page way back then, and then just kind of sat on it. And then it's just so obvious that I have to do some stuff. So I started a YouTube channel about a year ago, and so I got those two things going. And I got to bring this up. Believe it or not, I may have been the very first professional angler to actually have a website. Believe it or not, it was www.moynagh.com. And I started in 1997, right before that force would open that we talked about. But I ran it for about 5 years and it never seemed to do anything. So I just like, forget it. I'm done. I'm out of this business. Well, then it was like another 5 years after that everybody had them. and people were saying, you got to get on Facebook and this and that. But I've never really restarted a website. So, but I've got my Facebook page, got my YouTube channel. So I figure I'll just try to work on those things and get those, keep those rolling.
We will be back shortly with more of our Jim Moynagh interview, but now Ducket Fishing is going to give you the lowdown on what's happening in Southern California's Inland Empire. Last Chance Bait and Tackle is one of the better known tackle shops in Southern California. They have everything for both fresh and salt water. Most importantly, they have the inside information. We have Matt Magnone with us today. He is going to give us some information on what's going on at these Inland Empire lakes. Matt, thanks for being with us today.
Dude, we're actually going through a big transition right now, and it's pretty exciting because we got bait pretty much booming everywhere between Diamond Valley, Skinner, Paris. It's in that major shift right now where if guys start really thinking outside the box, you can have great days on the water right now. It's been a lot of fun fishing.
Well, let's start with my arch nemesis, Diamond Valley. Then, what's going on up there?
Pretty much you got that whole summer vibe fading away, leading into that fall transition time right now. Tons of silver sides on the bank. The threadfin never made a big, comeback after the stripers went in there, but right now silver sides are loaded down the bank. I mean, you can throw little darter heads at them, tiny flukes, scrounger heads, all that fun stuff. So it's like guys are kind of struggling right now because they want to throw the buzzbait, they want to throw the frog. They're not ready for summer to leave. But now it's that whole shad bite with the underspin and all that tiny bait, and you can bang on them pretty good right now.
That Fluke Junior is a killer and stuff like that.
It gets bit for sure.
Absolutely. Anything of size coming out of there lately?
There's been some quality fish, but I mean the guys hunting this with the swim bait and stuff like that, you're gonna get your fair shake on opportunity, but really right now you're dealing with that either 1.75 pounds to 2.5 pound schoolie, and you might load up on a few fish in the 3.5 to 4 pound range. The bigger fish that are already jump started into the fall, into the winter, I mean on structure spots, points, hump, bridges, that kind of stuff, you can get some quality, but it's not fishing 25 pounds. You're probably looking at that 16 to 18 pound limit, which is good. I mean, you can't argue with that.
Yeah, you cannot argue with that.
Great
limit. Are you so what depth is the most productive depth? Are you talking, is it a surface bite right now?
Yeah, you got that stuff that's like backs of coves, early and late kind of thing, or when the wind blows, that 0 to 3 feet of water, any pinch points or any wind blown coves. But then you have that 25 to 40 foot of water zone where you can set up on structure. It's been that uphill parallel type deal, shaking a big worm, throwing a jig. It's pretty cool. I mean, you can almost, it's at the time of year where people struggle, but it's the time of year you can almost pick what you want to fish. Like, you want to fish structure, you want to fish a drop shot, you want to fish a jig, or do you want to fish reaction the whole day, throw a rip bait or something? You can kind of do a lot. But the guys that are smart right now, if they really, really wanted to buckle down and catch quality, fish the bait, fish bite early, jump out to structure, and then when the wind shifts in that afternoon, run bank again, and you can get some quality doing that.
Oh, that is a great report. I mean, that is some good stuff. You only get that kind of stuff at a small tackle shop. You're not going to get that at the big boxes, that's for sure. Hey, how about Lake Skinner? Lake Skinner is always a good lake. How is it doing right now?
It's acting kind of funky right now. What's different about this year at Skinner is, I mean, we know the grass grows, we know the summertime bites fierce, best frog lake around, we all know that. But right now it's inundated with silver sides, like so much small micro bait that the competition is so fierce just to imitate anything that they want to eat. You got fish throughout the whole part of the water column. Well, I mean, that 0 to 15 foot zone that was really workable right now. But like they had a club tournament yesterday, I think 11 pounds won. It wasn't where it should be. It should be fishing, like I said, like 15 to 18 pounds, maybe 20 pound limit type stuff. Because Skinner, usually you have that opportunity, but right now it's a grinder. The grass bite's there, but most of the fish are kind of like outside edge type stuff. grass edges, lanes, and then any type of break. And there's only a few breaks out there, but they're holding on that kind of stuff right now. It's been a micro bait bite.
You know, I've always liked to go to Skinner when I just feel like I need to get out there and do some flipping in heavy cover. Has there been much of a flip bite?
Yeah, no, you can flip them. I mean, like a person that knows how to flip can really pick it apart. You're going to get a couple quality bites. It's not like that flip bite where you're going to end the day with like 15, 20 fish and be like, yeah, we smoked them. You're going to get that 4 to 5 bites. It's going to take you all day, but if you're flipping and punching deep right now, heavy line, 1.75 ounces, 2 ounce weight, you can come across some big bites right now. 100%. I know for a fact. But
the water is in a good position for that kind of thing right now. It sets up pretty well.
It was jam-packed high, and then the grass grew, and they dropped the water level, so now we're topped out in certain areas. And for a person that can really analyze grass, you can find the holes, you can find the depressions, and really pinpoint where fish should be on their way back out a little bit right now.
Cool.
So you can bang on them.
It's good stuff. Now, you know, I meant to ask you about the stripers at DVL also. Have the stripers been at DVL and Skinner? Have there been much of a striper bite?
Skinner's been kind of funky, but Diamond Valley this year more important than any other year we've had in the last probably 5, because as you know, 5 years ago it was great. 6 years ago,
yeah,
then it spurred off. Diamond this year's had so much schooling activity on like that 5 to 8 pound striper, which is nice to see. I mean,
it's fun size.
It's kind of a bummer in some cases, but I mean, you can go out there and legitimately catch striper right now. But the 20 to 25 pound class fish, they're really hard to come by.
Yeah. Yeah. But well, those smaller ones are fun, especially when they start schooling like that. That's fun.
Yeah, it's a blast. You catch like 3 in a row back to back. Your buddy's hooking. Another boat comes in, they slide in, they hook another one. It's always good.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. Now, Lake Paris, what's that been like?
I've been spending most of my time over at Paris right now. I've been joking around on the internet saying I'm fishing Disneyland, you know, because it's Paris is always like a free for all. You can have a lot of fun there, but I'm working on fish at Paris right now that are moving well off the bank and getting out in open water. A lot of guys are still running tree lines and throwing, you know, dippers or small swim baits to the trees, A-rigs, whatever. Most of what I'm focusing on is that 45 to 50 foot of water stuff. I'm finding shad balled up. I'm looking for the larger bait. And I mean, the tail spin, the heavy underspin, and the heavy A-rig down deep has been what I've been doing. I'm getting a lot of fish in a day. It's just a lot of fish finder work, a lot of graph work.
Yeah, that's kind of a more advanced pattern. You gotta know a little bit about your electronics. You gotta know a little bit about how fish react to structure and bait. But it's good to know it's there.
Yeah, and for the guy that just doesn't really, he wants to bass fish, but he doesn't want to go in depth or doesn't have the means to go in depth, they can literally take a 1/8 ounce underspin right now, a tiny fluke or a fluke junior, pin that thing on 6 pound in a spinner rod and run the bank. And there's a whole mess of 1.75 to 2 pound fish all up and down the bank, blowing up on bait. And all you got to do is cast beyond your target, pop, 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 and you'll hook them. It's a fun bite for a person learning how to fish bait.
Absolutely. Anything else going on this fall? I saw that National Bass West is going to be running tournaments again. That'll probably be coming through your shop, right?
We'll have the circuits, National Bass West, ABA. There's been talk they're going to have some other things like the Wild West Bass Trails, which is pretty cool. There's really not that many other circuits, but yeah, we got the tournament circuits coming up. First tournament for National Bass, I believe, is November 7th.
Yep.
The way the lake's shaping up, I mean, every year's different in SoCal, and we always say it's a weird year, but this year it's like a delayed summer. So the way the lake's shaping up, it's almost as if we're not going to have a true wintertime November tournament. It's almost going to be like a fall tournament where guys are going to be fishing shallow, small baits, running bait. It's going to be different than fishing 50, 60 Texas rigging or something. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be a real good tournament.
So I might have a chance to catch one then, is what you're saying, right?
That's the big limit right there. 27 pounds.
All right. Hey, Matt, I appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on with us. And we'll have this up and posted here pretty soon. Let you know all about it.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Anytime you want.
We're talking to Jim Moynagh. He is a longtime tour pro. He's won over $1 million, and he's got a really, really good YouTube page. Now, it's not bells and whistles like a lot of these YouTube channels are, but I find the information on it to be very, very interesting. Falling asleep, listening to Jim Moynagh reading vintage bass fishing magazines is one of the best things in terms of
You like that?
angler content on YouTube. And I am not just saying that because we're talking right now. Your experience, your fishing savvy, your fashion critiques. This is good stuff. It is a history lesson. What got you started doing that?
Um, it's just well, I think the first one I did was like last winter, and when you're in northern Minnesota, it's like, God, what can I put on a YouTube channel for fishing in northern Minnesota? When there's 2 feet of ice out on the lake out here. So I'm like, it was just a matter of trying to think of something I could do. And so I did the one. And my dad has all these old Bassmaster magazines. So I think his oldest one is maybe 1975. And
I
then
saw a 72 on your channel the other day.
Oh, he did? Was it 72? Are you sure?
I think so. I'm pretty sure you said 72.
Maybe maybe it was. I can't remember. But so he's got a good collection. They run up until about the early 80s, and then he doesn't have any more after that. But and then the attention, then I also, so what I want to do is I want to get a hold of eventually maybe get a hold of some like old fisherman magazines from the Linders, and get it, just get some old stuff. And but the Bassmaster stuff is really cool. It's kind of the niche that I'm trying to, trying to feed out there, the bass fishing world. So most of my stuff's going to be from Bassmaster on that. But eventually, I wouldn't mind mixing in an old fisherman magazine or two here and there.
I tell you, there's obviously a lot of young people. In fact, YouTube is a young person's vehicle. Old guys like me are trying to learn how to drive it. But the way you sit back in that green chair and go through that magazine, and then you start sharing stories from that era because you know the stories from that era, and the characters and the people that are these are people that we're never going to know about. No one's ever going to know that Roland Martin cast over a jetty into a fish hatchery to win a tournament. You know what I'm saying? Those are the kind of stories that are going to be lost.
Yeah, that's and it's really cool to just read through some of those. And here's the whole idea here. Here's one thing that I make sure I do. I do not, because he's literally got like 40 magazines I can pick from. I do not like go through them and pre-select things. I literally just grab a random one and bring it down to this basement. Oh, and I open it up right there with the YouTube rolling. And so that way I got a genuine reaction to what's going on. Like, for example, one of the last ones I did, it shocked the heck out of me because I went to the table of contents and I'm like, what the heck? Here's an fishing article by a friend of mine, Bill Linder. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea he was writing articles way back then. So that was really a surprise to me, and a super pleasant surprise, because that was a lot of fun reading that one and seeing what he had to say.
Well, between you and me, I think if I was going to ask a good bass fishing fairy a question, I'd want to know which lure to choose.
As far as, well, yeah, I wish we all had a bass fairy. I think some of these anglers do have one because they seem to guess right more often than not. But yeah, the bass fairy, that's bass fairy is in your own head, I guess. You got it.
Well, it was a great discussion because you were going through the magazine and Bob Cobb was writing about it. What would you do if you had a bass fairy? You could ask one question. That's what we do in pre-fish, right?
Yes. I wish. Yeah, there's so many times I could have used one, because look, our pre-fishing hours our official practice hours there's so many hours go by without nothing happening, because when you do let's say you do find a school of fish, well, you can't sit there and catch them. You got to just move on.
Right.
So much of our time is, but then a lot of our time is just, we're scratching our heads. It's like, man, last weekend, it took 23 pounds to win this tournament out here, and I can't even catch 5 fish, period. It's like a lot of nothing happening out there, for a lot of the practice time, that's for sure.
Jim, I don't want to take too much more of your time tonight, but I know you fished in an era where it was pro versus pro, and I was wondering if you had any good pro versus pro stories you might share with us.
Yeah, I just got in on the tail end of that. It wasn't long after that they completely did away with it.
Right.
But yeah, my first, basically, everybody asks me, Jim, when did you turn pro, Jim? And the answer for me is always August 1995, because that's when I was done with my full-time job and then started just fishing tournaments only. So the first pro tournament I ever fished was what was called a Bassmasters Invitational.
Yep.
Basically, back then they called them the Invitationals. Now they call them the Opens. So that's kind of the level we're looking at. And it was in October, I believe it was October of 1995. And back then, there was no off limits. You could practice as much as you want. And it was a tough fight out there on the Arkansas River. Did I say it was the Arkansas River?
Well, yeah, and now you did. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It was on the Arkansas River out of Pine Bluff. And it was a tough fishery. Weather, I remember the weather went sour, but I was catching some fish on a shallow running crankbait right out of the Pine Bluff pool. So, and I really wanted to fish those fish. I felt like I could at least catch it. I didn't feel like I was going to win, but you never know. But I at least felt like I'd throw some fish in the live well. So I draw for my first tournament. I draw Tommy Martin.
Wow.
So
wow.
I'm like, oh gosh. And so, it's a pro deal. So you got to figure out whose boat you're going to take. I'm like, well, here I got Tommy Martin. Who am I to argue with Tommy Martin as far as whose boat we're taking? If I was on like the ultimate pattern that was fail safe, which after all these years, I know there is no such thing, but let's say I felt like I was on it. Well, then I might have tried to put up an argument, but I talked to him a little bit, and he's catching some fish, and I already told you I was catching some fish where I was. So it's like, all right, well, just I'm right with Tommy Martin. He's the pro. He's got the the seniority over me. Although it doesn't matter, but I felt like that was a thing to do, and but we had with the Arkansas River, you got locks. We had locks to run through to get to his fish, and Bass gave us a lock schedule. So we actually had some time to fish, one of my spots, and I actually caught 2 fish out of my spot before we decided to run to Tommy's place. We had to hit those lock times, and those were the only 2 fish I caught that day. Oh. Tommy didn't do much better. He might have had 1 or 2 where he was fishing. So it was a tough rig or tough bite. I remember Ron Field won that tournament, fishing in the Pine Bluff pool, throwing a jig, and I think a jig for sure, and I think a spinnerbait back then. So, wow. Yeah.
It's good stuff. Jim, thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight. And we'll stay in touch. I look forward to seeing what else you put up on your channel. There's something about the way you deliver it that it's just something you can listen to. So you got to keep doing those vintage articles. Okay.
It's funny because I think you either love them or hate them, because it's like, there's some people are like, what, you're doing more of those sleepy time articles, videos? I'm like, hey, some people are saying they like them. So, it's something not many people are doing. So why not have me do them?
It's good stuff. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.